incident în fiecare zi. Okay, so today we'll talk about 3 architects born all on the same day. We start with Carme Pinos, the celebrated architect from Barcelona. So Pinos graduated Escuela Técnica Superior de Arquitectura. She was born in 1954, de Barcelona, in 1979, and returned to the school in 1981 to study urbanism. From 1982 on, she formed a partnership with her husband, Eric Miralles, which ended in 1991. During this period, the projects developed include the Igualada Cemetery Park, by the way, a masterpiece, the archery range buildings for the 1992 Summer Olympic Games, another great building, and the Launa School in Badalona. The work of Pinos Miralles received awards on several occasions, including the FAD Prize for the Launa School and the Igualada Cemetery Park, as well as the City of Barcelona Prize for the 1992 Olympic Archery Range buildings. In 1991, Pinos set up her own studio and transferred the supervision and construction of several projects initiated in her previous office. Amongst them was the community center and auditorium in Hostales in the Balania, La Mina Community Center, and the boarding school in Morella. Since then, she has combined her activity as an architect with teaching, working as a guest professor amongst others at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, the Kunstakademie Düsseldorf, the Columbia University in New York, the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, the ETSAB in Barcelona, and so on, Harvard included. So she's a very, very accomplished architect, teacher. Notable projects during her career include the pedestrian bridge in Petrer, Alicante, the Juan Aparicio waterfall. Anyway, I took this from Wikipedia without even reading them, and now I regret. I don't like lists of they are tiring. More recent projects include the Novoli housing complex in Florence, the Catalan government headquarters in Tortosa, high school, and anyway. Pinos designed the Gardunia Square in Barcelona, as well as 2 adjacent buildings, a housing building and the Massana Fine Art School. Okay, enough is enough. We'll see the works. We'll see her best works and in detail. This is Carme Pinos. Happy birthday to you. I sent her actually, an invitational message to her office, but not yet a personal one. Maybe next year if I continue to learn more about her and her works. Truly a remarkable architect, and indeed something almost miraculous happened, because usually in the past, when a lady was married to a famous husband, the 2 wives of Alvar Aalto, for example, they remain kind of in the shadow of the husband. But in this case, Carme Pinos, and not only Carme Pinos, but Benedetta Talia-Bue too, is a very interesting case, because actually two excellent architects from Barcelona were both married to Eric Miralles, of course, not at the same time, and they both prospered, artistically, architecturally, after he died as well. They created important works with him, and they create important works without him, which shows again that it's a big change in the world. The women are asserting themselves more and more through who they are, not because they are, the husband, the wife of who knows who. Anyway, Carme Pinos, bravo to her. And she was invited at an iconoclastic event in Vienna a few years ago called the Massive Attack, where Wolf Prix had an important role. She was invited together with other avant-garde or progressive architects from all over the world. Why? Because she deserved it. That's why. Now we just go through a few images of her work without the chronological order or anything, but then we'll study more in detail each work. This today will be, as I said, a difficult day for you and for me, because we'll present the works of three very important architects. So I'll try to be succinct, intense, and clear, so we don't lose time, since we know very well time is money. I am sarcastic towards myself now. She was also a designer of furniture or objects for the house or for the office, but we'll arrive at that. Actually, this presentation, which I prepared 2 or 3 years ago, is beginning to appear to me a little bit off. I think next year, if I continue to do this, I will create a new presentation, because this beginning is a little bit problematic. A scene from her office. Now here she is with her ex-husband, Eric Miralles, a formidable architect. Unfortunately, he died young because of brain tumor, and but they created important works together, and we are going to start perhaps with the best. This is the Igualada Cemetery in Barcelona, a work I admire immensely, because together with Brion Cemetery by Carlos Scarpa, and in a different way with the Modena Cemetery by Aldo Rossi, this work is one of the most important works having to do with the afterlife, with Domus Eterna. This is I don't know how to call it, a vignette that she always does this, through a few lines. Carme Pinos, externalizes in a way the formal, and maybe not just the formal, essence of a project. You will see that between this vignette and the plan of the Igualada Cemetery is not an essential big difference. And I'll show other vignettes like this. She is like a graphic symbol of a certain project. As part of a competition to replace an older cemetery, Eric Miralles and Carme Pinos envisioned a new type of cemetery that began to consider those that were laid to rest, as well as the families that still remained. After 10 years of construction, the Igualada Cemetery outside of Barcelona, Catalonia, Spain, was completed in 1994 as a place of reflection and memories. It's a work which it's very poetical. It's a meditation on life and death, or death and life, and it invites to maybe even to melancholia. But what else are we to expect from a cemetery? The architectural language appears to be kind of close in some parts to the construction. There might be this aspect to the works of Miralles and Pinos, but there is more to it. I wouldn't describe their work necessarily as being deconstructivist, but there is a significant level of fragmentation. The Igualada Cemetery is a project that challenges the traditional notions of what makes a cemetery. Miralles and Pinos conceptualize the poetic ideas of a cemetery for the visitors to begin to understand and accept the cycle of life as a link between the past, the present, the future. It's understood by the architects to be a city of the dead, where the dead and the living are brought closer together in spirit. As much as the Igualada Cemetery is a place for those to be laid to rest, it is a place for those to come and reflect in the solitude and serenity of the Catalonian landscape. It is a remarkable work, done with, you know, with, in a way, with simple means. It's you know, it's not a triumphalist work, and indeed, how could it be triumphalist? You know, we are dealing here with the fragility of the human condition. It requires, look at, this is the plan of the cemetery, and you see it's almost like a human silhouette, you know, projected on the ground, with the head and the shoulders and the legs and so on. The work really is unique, and there is a modesty about the work which I think is significant, and it generates, it serves its poetry, its creation. Architecture at its best is poetry. Frank Lloyd Wright said it very well: a great architect is a great poet. Not in the sense that he or she writes poetry with words, although that is the case sometimes, but poetry through the means of architecture, using materials, you know, wood, steel, stone, and so on. Like here, I love this picture. I didn't visit the cemetery, and I regret, but what I look at here is architecture at its best, really, and done in a very creative way. You know, there are things that appear to be puzzling. You know, we don't understand very well what is here, or, you know, what's happening. But you know, like in art, you cannot describe everything in terms of logic, or, you know, logical explanations and so on. The disarray of these pieces of wood incorporated in the floor, you know, show distress. But what else is, you know, the disappearance of someone who was dear to us? It has to do with distress, with suffering. Excellent work. Again, Carme Pinos, she worked with her husband at the time, Enric Miralles. Architecture is a cultural phenomenon. Alvar Aalto put it very, very well. Architecture belongs to culture, not to civilization. Architecture does not belong to the refrigerator, the parking lot, and the toilet. Period. Architecture belongs to culture and to spirit. And this is what these two architects, Carme Pinos and Enric Miralles, brilliantly show in this work. Now I'll show another work by them in La Villa Olímpica from 1992 in Barcelona. The pergolas, these pergolas, or in l'Avinguda Icaria, are absolutely incredible. And here they are. You know, I mean, this kind of work would be totally dismissed in most schools of architecture, and probably unimaginable by most architects. Pergolas, these are pergolas, these broken pergolas. Well, the rain goes through them, doesn't it? It's like a broken umbrella, and terribly broken. But you know, this is a pergola which has a built-in conflict in a way, because it's not really meant. This is not a functionalist statement. This must be understood. Architecture is not just about function, and it might not be first about function. Function understood in a narrow sense. You know, I make a pergola in order to protect myself. Well, you know, it seems that this highly trained, because they both taught the School of Architecture in Barcelona, highly cultured and highly sensitive, highly informed architects thought otherwise, that a pergola is not what we might expect it to be. I love these works. Yes, they are a little bit anxious and angst-provoking, but we have to acknowledge it. This is not a work that leaves you indifferent. They were built for the Summer Olympics in Barcelona. And you might say that these scattered, broken, you know, sculptural pergolas might represent, you know, the dynamics of conflict that, you know, any sportive event cannot avoid, and in fact shouldn't avoid, because that's what it is. I don't know. I'm just trying to interpret them in maybe in an easy and facile way. But you know, the fact that Barcelona built them like this, and the fact that these two architects, Carme Pinos and Eric Miralles, conceived them like this, says a lot about the level of cultural sophistication in the field of architecture that Barcelona has. Yes, there is anxiety here. They are expressionistic. They are, you know, broken. They are agitating, but they do not leave you indifferent. And I think, you know, one of the four Nobel Prize laureates born in Romania was right, Elie Wiesel, who said, you know, the opposite of life is not death, is indifference. And the opposite of love is not hate, but indifference, and so on. And these don't leave you indifferent. And this is a lot, because many buildings do just that. They leave you indifferent, but these things do not leave you indifferent. It's another architectural statement in a way about the dynamics of life, sometimes conflictual, also about the fragility of human life. The placid pergolas of, you know, orthodox functionalism do not narrate in any way something that has to do with you know, existentialism, with you know, the questions, the doubts, the problems of human life. They are just placid, banal, you know, outdoor roofings, as some might call them. But these are pergolas for perhaps more for the mind and for the spirit than for the body. A pedestrian footbridge in Petrer, Alicante, 1991, 1999. I think this is mostly her work. Maybe she began it with her husband, ex-husband, but you know, they separated at one moment, and I think she finalized this work mainly by herself. But even here we see levels of dislocation and disjunction and fragmentation. You know, what is this telling you? Well, it's telling you that there are such moments in terms of space and form in one's life as well. You know, again, orthodox functionalism is extremely primitive and extremely dry. You know, and unfortunately, many architects, if not most architects, think that architecture is just about functionalism. It's not. You see here again a vignette like she does for each work that she was involved in, but this is actually, I think, this is the drawing of her husband, ex-husband, Eric Miralles. But even as a graphic notation of the project is remarkable, is unsettling, is abstract, it's a psychic drawing in a way. The Juan Aparicio seafront in Torrevieja. I have some difficulties. Well, it's not just because of it, but I have some difficulties to read because I'm undecided, you know, because Catalonia is part of Spain, and you know, you wonder how to pronounce things because it is part of Spain, but the Catalan language is different from the Spanish language. This doesn't mean that I know both languages. I don't. But a few things I know, and I still hesitate because how to pronounce. You know, it's Catalan, but it's also Catalan, but it's in Spain. Anyway, another vignette. Carme Pinos to open the Bartlett School of Architecture summer show. You know, Bartlett is a famous architecture school in London, and she was invited to open this summer show. I don't know in what year, and here it is. And this is what I want. I want the schools of architecture in our country to have the same enthusiasm, to have the same spirit in you know, at exhibitions, at conferences, you know, to feel this passion, this curiosity. You know, you can tell that this is an event that interested everybody. Look at here, you know, yes, it was about before the pandemic, but it shows clearly exuberance, curiosity, thirst. I remember what Steve Jobs said in a beautiful commencement at Stanford University, and I suggest to you to watch it. If you just go to YouTube and type in Steve Jobs commencement speech Stanford, you will come across it. And he ended it by saying, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." These were not actually his words. He quoted from World, I forgot the name. It was a book published in the 60s, at the end of 60s. And it ended with these words: "Stay hungry, stay foolish." And these are beautiful words, truly beautiful words. And I understand very well why Steve Jobs ended his excellent, beautiful, and moving speech to the Stanford graduates in that year with these two words: "Stay hungry, stay foolish." Because if you are hungry, not of food, but of spiritual food, of you know, if you are hungry for knowledge, and you are also foolish enough to know that time is not money, if you are foolish enough to believe in creativity, to believe in exuberance, to believe in enthusiasm, to believe in idealism, then you are not losing your life. You are earning your life, although you might have some problems with earning a living. But it's preferable to earn your life than to earn a living. This is what I think. Because essentially it's not complicated. Do we eat in order to live, or we live in order to eat? We have to decide. If we live in order to eat, then yes, time is money, and you sacrifice your life in order for, you know, for the stomach and the pocket. But if you eat in order to live, in other words, life is the goal, then things change dramatically and beautifully. What I see here, I see people for whom probably, you know, food is good in order to live, and not vice versa. This curiosity, this enthusiasm, this desire to know, this hunger, I wish I can see more of it in our country. Master plan for the historic center of Saint-Dizier, France. I don't have images. The department's building of the new campus of the Vienna University of Economics and Business. This was built, and I saw it. In fact, it's next to the library built by Zaha Hadid. And I have to say, the building by Carme Pinos is not inferior to the building by Zaha Hadid. Is different, is perhaps a little bit less spectacular, but in terms of quality, architectonic quality is not in any way, less than the building by Zaha Hadid. And across the space here on the left, but you don't see it, is a building by Peter Cook. So, an important vicinity, so to speak. So again, these buildings are in Vienna by Carme Pinos. In fact, here you see the building by Zaha Hadid. It's right next to it. And then this is by Carme Pinos, the remarkable architect from Barcelona. Again, here, this part belongs to the library by Zaha, and this is Carme Pinos. I have been here with students from schools of architecture in Romania, most of them from Bucharest. Carme Pinos, happy birthday to you. Here you see the three buildings. This is Zaha, this is Carme Pinos, and this is Peter Cook. This is also an excellent building, but I do not know the name of the authors, although I should, because I liked it very much. From the top doesn't look so impressive, but from the level of the eye, it does. But anyway, these three are stars of contemporary architecture. And yes, they are, right next to each other. This is Zaha, and here is Carme Pinos. Now, Cube 1 Tower in Guadalajara, Mexico. Mexico is not a country the way, ex-president of the United States described it. No, far from it. I spent 2 weeks in Mexico, and I have to say, I met very sophisticated, cultured, dynamic, interesting people in Mexico, very proud of being Mexicans, and they have reasons to be proud. And in terms of architecture, I don't know if you know, but Guadalajara invited very important architects from Europe and other parts of the world to build significant buildings there, something that Romania doesn't do, and I don't know why. Anyway, we'll look. She built this building in. She built actually two buildings, two tall buildings in Guadalajara. This is one of them, and she built another one, a little taller, closer to what we might call a skyscraper. But this is remarkable too, and we are going to see the plan. You see and she built this by herself. At that time, when she built this, she was separated from her ex-husband, and maybe he even died by then. I don't know, but this is the work of Carme Pinos without Enric Miralles. The model. Architecture is supposed to be an adventure. Is supposed to stir up one's emotions, the emotions of the one who makes the project and the emotions of those who use the building or visit it and so on. If there is no adventure in the process of building the building, then the building has all the chances to become rather, placid and banal. And creativity needs risk taking. If you don't take risks, you don't create something alive, and interesting and unique. I mean, you have to understand, Carme Pinos is probably in a legitimate way proud of her life until now. As an architect, she honored architecture with the best she had, and we look at her works, with admiration. You cannot divorce form from function. Form is important. Function is important too, but to reduce architecture to function is extremely deadly for architecture. So this is one of the buildings that she built in Guadalajara. We are going to see the other. But you see, there is playfulness here. There is tension. There is energy. This is the vignette of the tower she built in Guadalajara. I want you to understand that what I do here is, besides the fact that it's an homage to the architect I talk about, it's also an invitation to further exploration. You know, it's not really about information. I am saying this continuously to myself and others. I make these presentations they are not really about information. They are about inspiration. If I can inspire with them through the works that I show, then you can very easily, after the presentation, keep searching yourself on the web, because today knowledge is found very easily and information is found very easily on the web. That's how I find it too, without leaving my room. Since the pandemic started, all these things I did from the solitude of my room. Now, Cube 2 tower in Guadalajara, you see the same, it's a different building, and you'll see very different building, but the manner of showing the essence of the project is the same, through a vignette, very abstract, a conceptualized vignette. This is the tower, and it was built. Look at this. This is the ground floor, and it's majestic, and it's it has in its proximity the tall buildings built by who knows what offices. But Carme Pinos stands her ground, so to speak, with dignity and with force and with inspiration and with energy, a lot of energy. Actually, her work is more creative than the building on the right and the building on the left. We are look at them here. This is rather, mimicking a certain architectural language of our time, and this is rather banal, and so is this. But not her tower. Her tower is splendid. Guadalajara, Mexico. Again, this is not the country that would fit the descriptions of, the former president of the United States. In Mexico, also, Tadawando built. At least I know of two works, and other important artists, Lipskind as well, and Zaha Hadid as well. It's a sophisticated country and a large country, and very, very eager to assert itself in the field of architecture. This is a project that was not yet built, also for the University of Economics and Business in Vienna. I go a little bit quickly because we have two other presentations, and I really want to talk about all three architects today, since it is their birthday. Restoration of the back facade of La Boqueria market in Barcelona. Look at this, it's a market, but it's architecture, and again, it's dynamic, it's sculptural, it has expression. Imagine you go here to buy some fruits or something. Architecture is meant to move you and to inspire you. And I like to imagine that if you go to this market, you will not perceive it as, an uninspiring place, because architecture inspires you, it provokes you. Here she is, Carme Pinos. Here they are, again, as young people with Eric Miralles. Here she is in maybe in her apartment. Anyway, Cube 2 office towers at Popopan, Mexico. We saw already an image of it. As I said, this presentation deserves some improvements, and I hope I will be able to make them, because it's a little bit disorganized. Usually I'm more organized, and I hope I will show it in the next two presentations. Bravo anyway to Carme Pinos. Cube 2. It's not really a cube, but maybe because the first one, which was closer to a cube, was called Cube 1, this is called Cube 2. Maybe it has some cubistic sensitivity. I love the plans, you know, is that they are charged with energy because of the dialectics of the forms. You know, there is a centrifugal force and a centripetal force kind of together. Very interesting plans. Again, architecture is beautiful if it is an adventure, if it is a creation. And if it's not, well, now a single family house in the district of Valcarca, Barcelona, 2003-2010, exposed concrete in good measure, but it shows again the vigor of Carme Pinos architecture. The vignette, and look at this, you know, with it's not just austerity, the austerity of form, but also the materials she uses. You know, it shows, you know, it's a resolution, so to speak. It shows, you know, determination in manipulating the form, but also you see these are not, you know, walls without their own, you know, specificity. Look at the materials. They have a patina. They have. It's not. It's an architecture which appears to be simple, but there is more to the simplicity. And the interior, okay, the interior maybe doesn't surprise us too much. So I guess this piece of you know, furniture was built for this house, and so was this. She's also a designer. Now, the Zaragoza Arquitectura España, the Caixa Forum, I don't know if I pronounce well, is another excellent building by Carme Pinos. Here it is. It makes me think a little bit of the Whitney Museum of American Art in New York City by Marcel Breuer. Although this building wouldn't be described as a brutalist architectural statement, but it has something in common a little bit with the Whitney Museum in New York by Breuer, Marcel Breuer. At night, it receives this, you know, visual effects on the facades, manipulated, I imagine, electronically. It's again, it shows courage, it shows creativity. It's a building which you know, says yes to life and not no to life. And to modernity, of course, it is a building for the present. What is this? A summer house she designed again in Guadalajara, gives a sense of spaciousness and brightness in a timeless and comfortable interior. Well, this is not my wording, but it's a small house. It's, I mean, I wouldn't call it, I wouldn't really use the word timeless or timelessness, but it's a well-built house, and it has the virtue of problematizing or even agitating, if I am to use this word, the relationship between the inside and the outside. As you can see, it's not a strict delimitation between the interior and the exterior. So the house is dynamically involved in having a dialogue with the exterior. The Catalan government headquarters in Tortosa, well, it's not the building on the left, it's the building on the right. But I like very much, the vicinity in a way, the fact that a governmental building is so close, to old buildings that are, affected by the passage of time, probably, not very affluent people living there or whatever. And look at her intervention, courageously bringing in the new within an urban fabric that, didn't need to pretend that it is more than it is. I like this very much, about the honesty of being who you are. And the governmental building, of course, asserts itself as a, civilized building of the present, but the environment is left somehow, because we talked the other day about Camillo Zite. I see here, especially when I see this picture, something of the urbanism, the incomplete or the imperfect urbanism that he advocated. The way this building by Pinos is inserted into the fabric of the old town, it makes me think of Camillo Zita, yes. Because this is a different kind of urbanism, When we think of a governmental building, we think of having a wide avenue, going straight to it, symmetry, trees on the left, trees on the right, and so on. And here we have none of that. It's just narrow streets, and the building is finding its place there, just like, a church or a cathedral in an old medieval town with narrow proximities and so on. It's fine. I like it very much. And again, a modern statement. She is not mimicking, the aesthetics of the building on the left or the aesthetics of the building on the right, which we see here. Bravo again to Carme Pinos. Some pieces of furniture that she designed. You see again a little vignette on the left. This is an exterior bench, 2006, restaurant table in the building that we saw, the Caixa Forum, a table designed for the same building, a bar trolley for the same building. Of course, an architect likes to design everything, a city, a building, the sleepers of the the inhabitant of the house or the client and so on, everything, if they are given the opportunity, of course. A table with chairs, and I think this is the last image. Yes, a desk. Now we go to the second architect we'll talk about today, a very interesting and important Italian futurist architect and neo-rationalist at the same time, Giuseppe Terragni, a very important Italian architect who unfortunately died young at 39, like Eminescu. So let's see. Giuseppe Terragni. Giuseppe Terragni was born on the 18th of April, 1904, and died in July 1943, was an Italian architect who worked primarily under the fascist regime of Benito Mussolini and pioneered the Italian modern movement under the rubric of rationalism. His most famous work is the Casa del Fascio, built in Como, northern Italy, which was begun in 1932 and completed in 1936. It was built in accordance with the international style of architecture and frescoed by abstract artist Mario Radice. In 1938, at the behest of Mussolini's fascist government, Terragni designed the Danteum, an unbuilt monument to the Italian poet Dante Alighieri, structured around the formal divisions of his greatest work, the Divine Comedy. Too bad it was not built. And actually in the invitational message I sent out today, I included the plan of this Danteum. Here was the man, handsome like most Italian men, dangerously handsome. Here he is, progettare la cultura. La cultura, again, architecture belongs to culture, not to civilization, not to the refrigerator, not to the parking lot, and so on. Okay, drawings by Giuseppe Terragni. Again, a very important architect. And I remember attending a conference by Peter Eisenman in New York, and he declared that he was collecting all works, whatever he found, by or about Giuseppe Terragni. He was a great fan of Giuseppe Terragni. The Danteum, these are just some images, some illustrations about the work that I mentioned in reading that text from Wikipedia. This is a drawing of Casa del Fascio in Como, a very important work by him. He's not really a futurist architect, but being a fascist architect, and he even built the only building based on a drawing by Santelia, plus futurism was connected with fascism. Maybe he could be approximated as being such an architect as well, but mainly he is considered part of the rationalist architectural movement in Italy, but through and through belonging to the fascist movement. Facciata dei primi, I took these titles of works from the Italian Wikipedia. They had more entries than the English Wikipedia. It's just he worked on the first floor and maybe also the second. Novo Comum di Como, 1927-1929. I guess it's an apartment building. Still stands and still, I would say, moderately contemporary somehow, although it does look a little bit belonging to that time in the 20s and 30s before the war. But it's kept very well, better than the building on the right, as you can see, but that one does not belong to him. Anyway, Giuseppe Terragni. It's something puzzling me, because the Italians, who seem to be, compared at least to, the Germans, of course, or even the French, they are more Mediterranean, more lyrical, more Latin, and more exuberant. But the truth is, the Italian rationalist movement is quite strong and striking. So rationalism in Italy is somehow, maybe paradoxically, the expression of ardent temperaments and ardent spirits. Of course, they have many sides to them. This is a monument he did from 1926 to 1932, and the monument it is. Maybe a little bit passeistic, but he was young, no? I mean, he died in 1943. Also, it's very difficult to escape in Italy the tremendous cultural past, which could easily enslave you. The Monumento ai Caduti di Como, this is and that's why I mentioned him as, connected with futurists, because he was the architect who actually, I think he promoted the idea to build this monument based on the drawing, the rendering of Antonio Santeglia to Marinetti, and they found the funds to build it. So the architect was Giuseppe Terragni, but the visionary architect and drawing behind the realization, the building, is actually Antonio Santeglia. It's a very fine building, and is the only one built on on the vision of Santeglia. And I admire very much this dialogue, this friendship over time between architects. Santeglia was dead. Giuseppe Terragni was to die, but while he was alive, he was still, connected with the suggestions coming from Antonio Santeglia, and is this continuation, because art is really about transgressing space and time. And now you see the drawing by him, by Antonio Santeglia, on the left, and the realized project on the right, Giuseppe Terragni. But he used, as I said, the drawing, the inspirational drawing, and it's more than inspirational. It's an explicit rendering of the building by Santeglia. 1914, 1933, almost 20 years passed since the drawing, since Santeglia drew this very fine, rendering of this imagined building by him, and the construction of it by Giuseppe Terragni in 1933. I forgot exactly in what year Santeglia died. He probably died before 1918. I think he died in the First World War. This is the drawing by Antonio Santeglia. And I keep saying, even if you don't have clients, even if you don't have a business or your own office, absolutely nobody can stop you from expressing your love for architecture and life and art and ideas and culture. And you can do it very easily. You need some pencils and some paper or a laptop, secondhand or whatever, like mine. You don't need a lot of things. You just need the desire to earn your life. That's it. Just as Anthony Santelia, about whom we keep talking, although he died at 28, because he left something behind that inspired and inspires people. And it inspired Giuseppe Terragni 20 years later to build this work, which was, you know, given birth to by Antonio Santelia. Bravo to both of them. Now, this is in Como, 1932. It's part of a cemetery, a tomb. Interesting work, actually. You know, it's monumental, although it's not so big in size, and it has some so-called classical elements. He gets rid of them later. You will see the Casa del Fascio. Here is also another one. He built two. Both of them are, you know, show distinctiveness, and you know, the architect was very, very skillful. Here we have a different interpretation of what the end of life means. If we compare them to the Igualada cemetery near Barcelona that we just saw by Carme Pinos and Eric Miralles. Sala O della Mostra della Rivoluzione Fascista a Roma, 1932. It was an exhibition that he designed. Yeah, militaristic, what can we do? But it's both puzzling and perplexing, and I don't know how else to describe this involvement of the avant-garde, artistic and architectural avant-garde, with you know, questionable political and military stances. Marinetti also was openly, you know, a great admirer of fascism, and so were, you know, some of the futurists. But the exhibition is interesting, it's true. And we see here, you know, the turmoil, the vortex. You know, it was a political movement, but it manifested itself artistically in a rather innovative and avant-garde ways, as opposed to the fascism in Germany, which would not have in any way anything to do with the avant-garde. But the fascism in Italy was different. It involved some, you know, very forward-looking architects. Well, you know, the Rivoluzione Fascista had its imagery, you know, questionable indeed, but anyway, here they are, the soldiers. But the building, I hope I have an image from the outside, is strikingly modern. And so is the stage design inside. I mean, the exhibition itself. Giuseppe Terragni. Look at these X's, you know, left and right. You know, they are. I mean, this is a provocative letter X. I like letter X, to be honest with you. Look how strikingly modern this building is compared to the other buildings, and you know, even by today's standards, this building stands out as being modern. Look at the car. You look at the car and you realize when the building was built. But the modernity of the building is, you know, astonishing. You know, if we compare it to the obsolete, well, romantically beautiful, but obsolete car. Albergo, Posta, Como, is the postal office. 1929, 1931, Giuseppe Terragni. I think he did some, not the whole building, he just, you know, I don't know, refurbished the building, the outside and maybe the inside, but the building is not really designed by him. He just did the interior design, you know, the staircase and whatever. Progetta per un villa con whatever. I like the plans though very much. They are freer, in my opinion, than the plans of the celebrated Villa Savoie, built in 1928. Another tomb, this one we saw, I think, maybe from a different side. Now, this is his best known work, the Casa del Fascio di Como, 1932-1936. And it's an excellent work. It's pure, it's strong, it's a fine building. This one we could say somehow, yes, it is in the vein of rationalism, but it has somehow, especially under certain conditions of light, a certain timeless quality, if we are to call it so. Maybe because of the proportions, I don't know, but even details, as you can see here, the handrail is interesting, and it's a masterpiece by Giuseppe Terragni. And you see, it stands within the fabric, the urban fabric of the city stands out with its non-ideologized modernity. Because even if it is Casa del Fascio, I think the building has, through its abstractness, stands out of the realm of political ideologies. So the rationalism of the emotional Italians is rather paradoxical, you know, because it's, yes, Italians are emotional, but when they become rationalists, I think the rationalism is, as someone said here, rationalism is poetry. Could be poetry, yes. I didn't see too much of that poetry in what I described as being the rationalism of Francis Kere. Maybe I was wrong, I don't know. That's how I perceived his work for now. Who knows? Maybe I will change one day, maybe. Anyway, Casa del Fascio, Giuseppe Terragni, I have seen it. And I unfortunately, I don't have in this presentation the beautiful trees, contorted, dramatic, expressionistic trees that are not too far away from it. The street has them. I hope I have them, because I was in love with those trees. Now, of course, the trees were not designed by Giuseppe Terragni, but they were in a beautiful contrast with the building. Casa Rustici a Milano, 1933-1935, not bad. Not bad at all, you know, and if this building was built 90 years later, meaning today, would still stand out, and it would be without doubt published on the most, you know, visited websites, e-signs, blogs, and whatever. Giuseppe Terragni in Milan. Essentially, there are two blocks of flats united by these long balconies, which is an interesting idea. To create a unity out of a two-ness. You have two parts, two buildings, and you unite them in this way. It's possible, and he did it, and I think he's very convincing. It might be that the most architectural feature of this is actually this long balcony that unites the two sides. And it's interesting because it is in the corner, you know, and you know, very rarely you have such a site, you know, where there is an opening, a rift between the two sides of two different streets. and yet the unity is present through this continuous balcony from left to right and right from to left. Interesting work and very skillfully done. Casa Toninello, Milano, 1933. He died at 43, but no, at 39, but you know, he built a lot. Casa Ghirighelli, again Milano, with Pietro Lingheri, another block of flats. This one interesting too because of this slight, this is not an 180 degrees angle, you see, and because of it, the shadows are have something surrealistic about them. You see here in the plan is like, I don't know, 165 or 70 degrees, whatever between these two. And the staircase is maybe a little bit too predictable with this curved part here, but it's still a good block of flats. 80 something years ago, almost 90 years ago. Milan. Casa di Vacanze. It was not built for an artist. Progetto non realizzato for the triennial in Milan, 1933. But I see it realized here. I don't know. Maybe it was demolished or something. Anyway. Another monument, 1934. This one I find very moving in its solitude. It's just the sky above and the earth underneath, and that's it. But it's with simple means, I think it's a very moving monument. Again, commemorating, I don't know what, Monumento a Roberto Sarfati. I don't know who Roberto Sarfati is, but I admire the building. Giuseppe Terragni. Sorry for the resolution of the drawing, but you can see a little bit the the plan and the the three-dimensional view. The power of these stones, and I love stone. I love stones, and I see no reason why one wouldn't love stones. It's you can trust stone, of course, and even with this patina of the passage of time, in fact, even more, it becomes impressive. It has force. It has telluric force. It has poetry. Great work, in my opinion, simple as it is. Another casa with the same architect. Well, we see the certain elements of his architecture. You have the two nests that I mentioned, two sides, and then with a rift and the connections with balconies and so on. You see clearly here the two, like we noticed them before, but this is a different building on a smaller site. This makes me think a little bit of the Y house by Stephen Hall, a great one family house that is split, that Stephen Hall built. Another casa with the same architect, a block of flats, but it has nobility in its, straightforwardness. I think it has nobility. Giuseppe Terragni. A villa, and the villa it is. Well, here it looks a little bit aged, but in these older pictures, it still stands out as a modernistic building, doesn't it? So this young man built a lot, as you can see, and you know, the modernism that he displayed is still standing the test of time, I would say. Is this another exhibition room or space? Palazzo Terragni. Yeah, this is a building. I don't know if he designed it alone or not. Some of the buildings in Italy were not very well taken care of, but you know, they have so many buildings to take care of that it's probably very, very difficult to take care of all of them. But this is not an excuse, but maybe they can be understood a little bit. Although in Germany, probably they would have been all taken care of very, very well. I don't know what this is. I guess some kind of a rendering for the building. I like the rendering more than the building. Another villa, Giuseppe Terragni. Maybe this canopy here inspired a little, at least, Hans Hollein in what he did for Albertina Museum in Vienna. Asilo Sant'Elia di Como. It bears the name of Antonio Sant'Elia, but the building was built by Giuseppe Terragni. I actually like these things here. You know, they are you know, they are everywhere the same. You know, it doesn't matter the country. You know, with the burlesque naivete. We need the children so much. We need the children to teach us what we forgot so often. Jean Nouvel said that he always works like a child who loses himself in his work, in his play. And yes, if we can do that to do our works, you know, even the most stringent works, with that absent-mindedness of a child who loses himself in his play, would be great. But we take ourselves too seriously, you know, we are adults, we cannot be childlike, can we? But Brâncuș was right. When we are not children any longer, we are dead. Another house in Como, no pictures, an apartment building, lots of green there, you know, welcome to sustainability and to the ecological and crisis. Casa Giuliani, what is this? I rush a little bit because I still want you to not to leave before I also show the formidable Czech architect who also was born. And I think I end on this day. I think I end this presentation on Giuseppe Terragni with the Danteum, the project he did for Roma for Dante Alighieri, and it was not built, but it's a great loss. Maybe one day it will be built. The Danteum is an unbuilt architecture designed by Giuseppe Terragni and Pietro Alighieri. I guess they work together quite well. The many projects were done by them together. Sketches and drawings of the master give us the unfulfilled dream of Terragni for a monument to Dante in which the Divine Comedy was projected in an architectural scheme. And that's what I invited last year people to do, you know, a house for Dante Alighieri. I received 5 projects, but anyway, Giuseppe Terragni did this in 1938, and he did it brilliantly. Brilliantly for a brilliant writer. This is the plan. And look at this, it's abstract, it's sensitive, it's complex, it's simple, it's everything, you know, and it's a speculative architecture. It's about, it's a commemoration in architectural terms, but it tries to evoke, you know, the works of Dante through architecture. I really hope Italy will build this. It should. I almost feel like writing myself to some politicians in Italy to encourage them to build this work. They should have built it for last year when it was a big celebration for Dante. But we look here at drawings. It was not built, but this is Giuseppe Terragni at his best. This is him as an architect, and you know, a deep architect, a deep philosopher, a deep you know, contemplator of a great writer, and what can I say? Again, it moves me an architecture that is serving higher purposes, so to speak. You know, it should have been built. It should have been built. I'm surprised the Italians didn't yet build it. Giuseppe Terragni. Excellent work. Somehow I perceive it as being even more excellent because it was not built. You know, it's like an unaccomplished, unconsummated, or not consummated love affair. You know, you always love more the person you didn't actually have the chance to be together with. So it's more like a longing. And this is what it is, a project that was not built. It's a longing of this architect, or both architects, for paying homage to Dante through architecture. I wish I knew more about the building in its specifics. I know that these columns were supposed to be made of glass, if I remember well, or some kind of, you see, transparent columns. This unsettles one, you know, makes you, you know, dizzy and unsettled, but inspired somehow. And anyway, I think architecture is at its best when it assumes what in English is called the speculative. The meaning of the word speculative in Romanian is different than in English, you know, but in English it means it's philosophically charged. The Danteo, Inferno, and in Inferno it is. Are we thinking about the Inferno or the paradise in our works, the Purgatorio? We don't. But look at this, you know, again, this is how architecture becomes beautiful and moving, because it addresses the spirit, the heart, and not just the brain, the emotions, the longings, the imaginings, you know, the imagination. Paradiso. Isn't our life in a way just like this, you know, being born and disappearing at one moment? That's it. And now we go to the third architect before I become too nostalgic or melancholy. A very important architect who worked in Great Britain, but he was born in former Czechoslovakia. Jan Kaplicky. Jan Kaplicky was born, as you can see, the 18th of April, 1937, and died in 2009. Was a neo-futurist Czech architect who spent a significant part of his life in the United Kingdom. He was the leading architect behind the innovative design office Future Systems. He was best known for the neo-futuristic Selfridges building in Birmingham, England, and the media center at Lord's Cricket Ground in London. Here he was, I would say, a handsome man, and no wonder a famous architect, Amanda Lebet, fell in love with him, and they worked together for Future Systems. I hope I have a picture here of both. I also have a presentation on her because she is also one of the important architects today. So this is Jan, the Czech architect living and working in Great Britain. Drawings, but this is what Sir Richard Rogers said about him. Jan was not just a visionary architect, he was a draftsman of genius. His spirited drawings were at the same time intricate and incredibly economical, able to communicate his space-age visions with just a few strokes of the pen. Again, a visionary architect. Do we know what that means? I think any good architect is so-called visionary to an extent, because it's about that longing for the unknown. He was indeed formidable. I think Sir Richard Rogers was right. I mean, look at this drawing. It is futuristic or neo-futuristic, if you want to call it, high-tech, very intricate, very precise, and yet open-ended in its meanings. We are going to see a few buildings built by Jan. As you can see, I hesitate to pronounce his family name, which I'll probably never truly memorize or learn how to pronounce correctly. But I admire this architect, although he's very different from what I am able to do. But I like those who are completely opposite to what I am. They say that opposites attract. No, he did these drawings, I think, manually. He didn't draw them, with computers. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Anyway, fantastic works, really. You would say, how could he build something like this? Well, he built. And the fact that he stirred up the admiration of someone like Richard Rogers says a lot. So these are just some drawings by him, and this was built. We are going to see it. You would say this is a science fiction architect who imagined things for Mars, or who knows for what other, star or planet. A house for a helicopter pilot. I love even its naming, a house for a helicopter pilot for a pilot. The design for this house features a bright pink cuboid with spindly metal legs and a rooftop helipad, while house for Joseph K, another project he did, is a low-rise bulbous structure that almost looks like it has been designed for the surface of Mars. Well, I anticipated. I already used the word Mars. This is the house. It was not built, but he designed it. And indeed, you see the helicopter landing on the top of the house, because this is the house for the pilot of that helicopter. A dreamer, no, Jan? What else? But the best architects are dreamers. They have to be dreamers, but they are not only dreamers, they are also doers. And he was a doer. Look at this house. If it was built, it would not have been less significant building, I would say, although much smaller than Villa Savoie. House for Joseph K, 1997. That's the only picture I have here now. I regret now, I should have more because I like the name of the client, Joseph K. I don't know who Joseph K is, maybe a relative of his or something. Now we see the Future Systems office, famous architecture office that he ran together with, I will read about it. Future Systems was a London-based architectural and design practice formerly headed by directors Jan Kaplicky and Amanda Levete. She is still alive and a very good architect. Future Systems was founded by Kaplicky and David Nixon after working with Dennis Lasden, Norman Foster, Renzo Piano, and Richard Rogers in 1979. The work of Future Systems can be classified within the British high-tech architects as either bionic architecture or amorphous organic shapes, sometimes referred to as blob architecture. Compared to his peers, Kaplicky was the avant-garde incarnate, relentlessly pursuing the new thing, refusing to settle into some predictable and comfortable architectural niche. And this is what we should do too. And this is what I invite the young architects and students to do. Pursue the new thing. Refuse to settle into some predictable and comfortable architectural niche. This is a house from 1993. They built Future Systems, him and Amanda Levete. For my taste, a little bit too much glass, but at least it's a fragmented glass in the sense that, you know, these large surfaces are actually made up of small little pieces of glass, these squares, and I like this. But it's still, for today's standards, you say a little bit too much glass because of the loss of energy and so on, but still, it stands out, as small as it is, in the vicinity of those two houses left and right. Now, of course, the tree is the big star, and I love trees, and this tree, you know, is one of the best. Kind of like it reminds me of the trees in front of Casa di Fascio in Como by Terragni. The section maybe is a little bit predictable for this kind of you know, architectural expression, but I imagine people are happy in this house, at least happy until they receive the electrical bill. Because yes, you do need some you do need some infusion of air conditioning here, I guess. Anyway, lots of dolls. That's nice. I like to think that adults need dolls too, and they need to be playful also, like toddlers on the floor. Would be very, very nice. And architects to do their projects on the floor. Apparently even Francis Kere does, although I never saw a picture of him doing that, but I saw John Woodson doing that, playing like a kid on the floor with the, you know, the model of a building. I really think if an architect or a student in architecture does a good portion of the project, if not all of it, on the floor, like a toddler, maybe, you know, laying on the belly or on the side or whatever, the project would be more playful. I'm almost sure of it. Try it. West India Quay Bridge, London, a great bridge from 1996, Future Systems. It's a small, you know, it's not a very big bridge, but it has elegance. And look how it is supported. You know, it's the structure is seems to be, you know, interesting. A creation, in other words. It's not very clear to me. Are these floating? It might be. And if they are, it's even more astonishing. Now, this is an important work by them, the Lord's Cricket Ground Media from 1999. Look at it. Welcome to Mars. Welcome to the future. Fine, it's fine. You know, it's an old arena, but the addition here is still forward looking, although it was built 23 years ago. We need the future. We need the new. I like the fact that the word new was written twice. The new, because it's like a sunny new morning. You know, it's saying hello to what is to come. Dan Kaplicky and Amanda Levete. Please remember her name, an excellent architect, Amanda Levete. And not just for the brilliant museum she built in Lisbon. I wish I had pictures with them here. I don't understand why I don't, but maybe next year I will add some pictures, because they look good both. And I have even a picture in another presentation with both of them and Sir Norman Foster and Zaha Hadid and so on. Now, this is perhaps the best known work by them, the department store in Birmingham in the United Kingdom. And look at this, you know, that's not what you expect to see in the case of a department store. But it shows clearly, it doesn't matter, you know, the function of a building, you can still create something that stirs you up, stirs your imagination up. And I like this blobism, you know, or how to call it, you know, the skin of the building. It takes courage, it takes vision, it takes dreaming in order to do. Look at the typical you know, British buses, and then this building here. It stands out with its novelty, and it should. And you'll see a few other things he built. Jan Kaplicky, check. I think Great Britain, look at the interior. It makes me think a little bit of Lloyd's in London by Sir Richard Rogers. Well, they worked together, but by Kaplicky, we read Sir Richard Rogers had very admirative words about him. He was the most avant-garde of that group. Jan Kaplicky. A department store, but he has the nobility of a genuine architectural creation, even if the function inside is prosaic. And nothing wrong to have this church and this building in close proximity. No, not at all. Now, Enzo Ferrari Museum in Modena, also by Jan Kaplicky, and you know, to design a museum for Ferrari, it does say something in the sense that, you know, it was appreciated by high-end, you know, designers and, you know, car makers. Not that I am an admirer of cars and car makers, but I am an admirer of good architecture, and I think this is good architecture. And the cars are amusing, you know, with their own kind of trimming. Too bad that they consume, you know, oil, gasoline, and because of them, we had the war in Iraq, and maybe even the war in Ukraine, and who knows what. But the building is good, and again, it's strikingly, you know, new. It's strikingly yellow. It's strikingly Jan Kaplicky. This infusion of the new is, to me, is uplifting if it's done you know, with talent and with authenticity. I wish it was something else. I wish it was a school, maybe a school of architecture, or I don't know what. But I guess these expensive cars needed a home too. I don't know. I wish Ferrari built a school, the Ferrari school for avant-garde art or avant-garde architecture would have been great. But this can still be done. You just remove the cars and would be, can you imagine this building a school? Ah, I would start school again to go into this building to study anything. As you can see, I'm not a great fan of cars. I don't even have a driving license, although I lived in the United States for almost 30 years, if you can believe it. When I used to go to the library in New York City and ask for a book, and the librarian would not even lift the head, and they asked me for the driving license because that's the ID. And when I said I don't have a driving license, a shock went through the body of the librarian, and you know, looked up to me and said, "What?" I said, "Yes, I don't have a driving license. Sorry for my sin. You do not exist in the States if you don't have a driving license. In fact, the ID is given to you by the Department of Motor Vehicles. Can you imagine? Not by the governmental building. No. The Department of Motor Vehicles is the one that decides if you exist or not. Anyway, enough with this chatter. Let's move on with. Now we arrive at the very fine project. Unfortunately, was not built. The National Public Library, he won the competition in Prague. Look at this. If Prague would have built this, would have been the talk of the world. And, you know, everybody would have traveled there to see it and to open a book inside the public library, the National Library of Prague, but it was not built. And too bad, but I like it very much. It's you know, it's refreshing. No, it's unusual, it's enticing, it's everything you need in order to be provoked and to return home smiling. Just like in the case of the Danteum in Italy, maybe Prague will build it one day. I think a small version of it was built, maybe a bus station or something. It made it into its silhouette, its vignette on the stamp. You see, he was born in 1937, died in 2009. Dan Kaplicky. The small octopus, yes, he built it. They built in Brno a bus stop, which is based on his proposal for the library. And here it is. It's fine as a bus stop too, but I would have preferred it to be built as it was imagined for the National Library. But it's still the assertion of a good architect, a creative architect, an architect who said yes to life. Visionary project. He did another visionary project, maybe many visionary projects. This one is for New York City, and it is and visionary it is. I don't know what it represents, but what I see is I like. It's engaging, whatever it is. It was supposed to be built, but it was not built in New York City. Usually the word visionary is used when we don't understand something. So when we call someone, you are a visionary, let's say visionary architect, it means, okay, it's okay. But, you know, this is so otherworldly that we cannot describe it in any other way, but being so-called visionary. I don't like very much this word, because it expresses rather misunderstanding or trying to avoid an attempt to understand, and it's an easy way out. His grave, and with this I end the presentation. That's it. A sphere sitting on a horizontal or almost horizontal, it's not quite horizontal platform. He's there with you know, other people or so, like Emil Cioran and like Brâncuș. No, Emil Cioran is just with his girlfriend nobody knew about, Simon. I forgot her veil, her family name. Anyway, but Brâncuș is with two other people in Saint-Pierre Montparnasse, sharing the same Domus Eterna. I was very, very surprised that Brâncuș was not alone. But better to be with two other people than to be like Charles Baudelaire, who has two graves. He is actually in two graves, one with his parents and one by himself. Thank you.